Welcome to my weekly self-important Magic the Gathering show. This is the second week of Backgrounds of Baldur's Gate. Last week I was really happy with one of my decks. Let's see if we can go second week in a row. This is probably something nonsense I don't care about. Deck building contests, I don't enter those because I don't feel like it. So our first one is is a deck that's built both for Baeloth, how is that pronounced? Baeloth, Barrityl, the Entertainer. Let's just read what he does really quick. Creatures your opponents in control with power less than Baeloth Barrityl's power are goaded. Whenever a goaded attacking or blocking creature dies, you create a treasure token. Choose a background. I could have given him that Raised by Giants background to make him a 10/10, just to go to almost every creature opponents controls, but I went in a different direction. Or we can do Amber Gristle Maul, who has haste. And when Amber Gristle Maul attacks, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw a card for each player being attacked. I'm not a big fan of discarding, but if you have only a few cards in your hand and you plan on attacking one or more people, I guess, you can discard 0 cards and draw 1 if you're like me and have trouble keeping cards in your hand because you're bad at this. But they are Agent of the Shadow Thieves. Commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. It gains Death Touch and Indestructible no turn. Okay, so we're long playing Baeloth's Goad ability. That makes sense. I'm getting messages on my phone. I'll have to check those later. And then we have things to change base power and toughness of Baeloth. Obviously, Amber also benefits from this, just, as an attacker. Blade of the Oni makes them a base 5/5 with Menace and a demon in addition to their other types. Oh, a black demon. Then the Wrecking Ball arm makes them a 7/7 and can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. And then we have A-tier and pre-win. That makes their power toughness equal to our life total. Not a very good card. It costs 6, equips for 5. And then we have one piece of card draw right here. Whenever one or more other creatures die, draw a card once a turn. And then we have other things to deal with that do with Goad. Bloodthirsty Blade. We equip it to an opponent's creature, and it's +2/+0 and goaded. Okay. Do we have? Whenever a goaded attacking or blocking creature dies, we create a treasure token. Okay. I forgot about that. Spectacular Showdown. Put a double strike counter on target creature, then go to each creature that had a double strike counter put on it this way. Oh, an Overload. That is ridiculous and probably a bad card, if I'm being quite honest. But we can put double strike counters on all creatures, including our own, so that makes it less bad, because then everybody's double striking. So we're not putting ourselves at a disadvantage. But Goad does mean has to attack, so hopefully we don't have anything that we don't want to attack with. Bothersome Quasit, Menace. Goaded creatures your opponents control can't block. That's an important thing for Baeloth. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, go to creature an opponent controls. Okay. Whenever you cast a historic spell, that is a saga, a legendary permanent. I don't know if it has to be permanent. Does this let us know? Okay, just a legendary spell. Artifacts, legendary spells, and sagas. whenever we do that, once a turn, create a treasure token, and then we can tap, sacrifice a treasure to go to creature. Deals combat damage to a player. Goad each creature that player controls. Okay. Goad is a form of protection as long as you're not down to the 1v1. Because you're like, this creature has to attack, and it does, but not me. So you potentially, you know, you have them attack one of your opponents for you. And maybe it dies, maybe not. Whenever life of the party attacks, which it has first strike, trample, and haste, which is nice. Although it's a 0/1. Whenever it attacks, it gets plus X plus O until a turn where X is the number of creatures you control. Okay. So it's at least a 1/1. When life of the party enters, if it's not a token, each opponent creates a token that's a copy of it. The tokens are goaded for the rest of the game. And then Slicer, because he's funny, he's not goaded, but he fits into this. Oh no, he does goad himself. That's funny. Okay. Geode Rager, landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, goad each creature target player controls. Nice. Arena of Glory. Oh, we're in our lands now. We can exert it to give a creature haste. And then any of the rest of this land section. Nope, I didn't recognize anything. But we're going to click on this one just so we go. Oh, I gave Shadow Spirit its own section, didn't I? Hold on. Oh no, life gain. 1 life gain card. Because Shadow Spirit gives it +1/+1, trample, and lifelink, and you can remove hexproof and indestructible from our opponent's stuff. That, I mean, just a 1 mana artifact that can do that does feel kind of worth it, and it being an equipment that gives trample and lifelink is just kind of a bonus. And then here's the Myriad section because of Amber. Equip creature as Myriad. You have to be careful because you don't, because myriading legendaries doesn't work. Dalek Squadron. As long as the survivors is attacking, it's +X plus O until the turn where X is the number of lands defending player controls. That's mildly interesting, and it does have trample. Oh, and you get a treasure token when this deals combat damage to a player. Okay. Haste Myriad. Haste Myriad again. Is that basically the same thing? Same thing, but different mana cost. One is easier to cast than the other by colored pips. Oh no, the one with more difficult pips has 1 higher power. Interesting. 1 less to cast for each opponent who has dealt damage this turn, and it has menace. That's neat. Oh, and good old Master Multiplied. The legend rule doesn't apply to creature tokens you control. So, having him out, now we can blade ourselves our commander if we felt like it. Triggered abilities you control that can't cause you to sacrifice or exile creature tokens you control. Oh, that also works with Mobilize, doesn't it? Brotherhood Regalia for unblockable. But also, well, the Ward 2. But unblockable, then Lightning Greaves, Prowler's Helm, that can't be blocked except by walls. Psychic Paper, can't be blocked. Can't be blocked. Boots, the Helm. Masamune, as long as equipped creature is attacking, it has first strike and must be blocked if able. That's mildly interesting. Equipped creature has, if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of this creature or an emblem you own to trigger. Oh, that's for Baeloth, right? Yes, because that's not once a turn. after Masamune is Whisper's Cloak. Then I assume, yep, okay. Then just a standard ramp package. There's the Soul Stone. Oh, Facebreaker. We can sacrifice whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player. We get a treasure, and then we can sacrifice treasures to impulse draw. Zorn gets us an extra treasure for treasure. Solemn, Goldspan. Dragon of Mount Gulg is the ancient copper dragon, so you get a 1d20 treasures when it deals combat damage to a player. And oh nope. Then we have our removal section, which I have not separated, it looks like. So we have this we have good removal and silly removal mixed in here. We have Baleful Mastery, but we also have Transforming Flourish. Overkill, but also Guthrie Writes History. Delayed Blast Fireball, but also Chaos Warp. Arc Enemy's Charm, but also Wild Magic Surge. Terminate. Mizium Mortars, Infernal Grasp, Heartless Act, Go for the Throat, Cast Down, Vandal Blast, and Shattering Spree, because nobody else gets to have artifacts but us, I guess. I say for a deck that has two different things going on, I think I managed to put them together okay. Yeah, like, it's obviously not a great deck. Oh, I gotta hydrate a little. But, I don't know, I think I did okay. Like, like, maybe is it a spear? I don't know. Whatever this thing has going on, is it a sword and a shield or a spear and a shield? I've never, because I think this is from Final Fantasy XIV. In fact, if we go down here, it would tell us. That looks like it says 14. XIV. But I've never played it. But if I were to take it out, I wouldn't know what to put in. That's something you can put in the comments for people who comment on my videos, which, not many, but when you do, it's important, so I appreciate that. So next we have Gut, Absolute Zealot. They are not sharing this deck with anybody, as is appropriate. So their background is Cultist of the Absolute. Commander creatures you own get +3/+3, and have flying and death touch, with also ward, pay 3 life. And at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. So that so don't play this background unless you can pay for that upkeep cost. But Gut themselves, the True Soul Zealot, whenever you attack, you may sacrifice another creature or an artifact. If you do, create a 4/1 black skeleton creature token with menace that's tapped and attacking. Okay. Then we have Skull Clamp. Oh, that, assuming it survives combat, that black skeleton sticks around. We don't have to sacrifice it. But we can trade it for 2 cards with the Skull Clamp. Idol of Oblivion, we'd get to draw a card if we created a token. I know whenever I could talk about this, there's this whole other ability that makes a 10/10 Eldrazi, but we don't do that. Black Market Connections, you know, treasure, draw a card, 3/2 Shapeshifter for increasing amounts of life. Morbid Opportunist again. Phyrexian Arena. Whenever another creature you control dies, draw a card if it was attacking. This is Garna, Blood Fist of Keld. If it dies and it wasn't attacking, Garna, Blood Fist of Keld deals 1 damage to each opponent, so that's neat. Oh, we're already on our lands again. Lands, and then I separated lands basic this time, because that's a thing I do sometimes. Oh, now we're on our... Mass Disruption. I separated it this time. 4 pieces. Shattering Spree, Vandal Blast, Mizzy Mortars, Delayed Blast, Fireball. Delayed Blast, Fireball I really like. It's 2 damage to each creature for normal, but if you foretell it and are willing to pay 6, it's 5 damage to each opponent and each creature they control instead. And then our ramp is next, and it probably has the same ramp as the other deck. Oh, nope, there's one new thing. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each creature that died this turn. That's neat. Worn Soul Taker, pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature, create a treasure token. Professional Facebreakers right there, but we already seen them. Whoops. I guess I can just do this. Evan, Waterdeep Opportunist. Menace, ward, sacrifice a creature. +2/+0 for each treasure control. Whenever one or more players sacrifice 1 or more creatures, you create a tap treasure token once a turn. Whenever another creature you control dies, get a treasure. Solemn. That's the Goldspan Dragon again, with probably the best version of the art because it's one of the D&D. I think that's a first edition Dungeons and Dragons book cover. I'm not 100% sure. And then that dragon. Oh, is this, what is this? Just a bunch of cheap sacrificable creatures? This section has the nerve to call itself Recursion, so let's see what's in it. So, a cheap warrior that can return from the graveyard as long as you attacked that turn. This can return as long as a non-skeleton, so that's not really good with our commander's created skeleton, but it can be good with the skeleton, with whatever we sacrificed to make that skeleton. So there we go with that. Gutter Bones, only if an opponent lost life this turn. Altar of Baal. For 3 mana, we can create a 4/1 black skeleton creature with menace. But also, we can pay 2 and a black tap, exile a creature you control, which can be a token. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. Now, that doesn't help us with any of our triggers that say whenever a creature dies, but it's a way to get good creatures back from our graveyard after sacrificing a garbage creature. Reassembling Skeletons. It costs 1 more, and I love this art, but it costs 1 more on the initial cast, but you basically are casting it from your discard pile because it has no reservations about coming back. No other things that you have to do. Darn, forgot the word. Alesha, who laughs at fate, she can get stuff back from our graveyard, and she gets bigger. This guy turns them into skeletons. You might recall this guy had his own deck where we put a bunch of garbage in there that we wanted to get from the graveyard because all that mattered was their numbers. Palace Siege, we haven't seen this friend in a while. It goes to our hand, not the battlefield, but... Or we can drain our opponents for 2 every turn. Each opponent loses 2, but we gain 2. The Brass Dragon, where on combat damage, we get 1d20 worth of mana value from graveyards. Shieldred, everybody else sacrifices something on their upkeep, and we bring something back from our graveyard on our upkeep. We have a suboptimal removal spell that they try to make better by gaining 2 life on it. But also, return a card from a graveyard to the battlefield under our control at the beginning of our upkeep. Then we have our regular removal section, right? Yep, Cast Down, Go for the Throat, Heartless Act, Infernal Grasp, Terminate, Wild Magic Surge, Arc, Enemy's Charm, Chaos Warp, Guthrie Writes History, Overkill, Transforming Flourish, and Baleful Mastery. And then a small section of things that specifically care about the skeletons that we have. Corpses of the Lost. Skeletons we control have +1/+0 in haste. That's helpful. And when it enters, we get a 2/2 skeleton. That's also a pirate. At the beginning of your end step, if you've descended this turn, that is if a permanent card was put into our graveyard from anywhere. Specifically non-token, because it has to be a card. Tokens are not cards, technically speaking. You may pay 1 life. If you do, this goes to our hand, just so we can cast it again to get another skeleton if we need to. Death Baron, skeletons and zombies, +1/+1 and death touch. Skeletons, vampires, and zombies get +1/+1. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died, we may pay 1 to get a skeleton. Each other creature you control that's skeleton or private gets +1/+1, and whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, we get a skeleton. And then we can also pay a large amount of mana to get it back from the graveyard to our battlefield tapped. Skeleton and zombies get +1/+1 and menace, ward 2 generic and 2 life. And whenever you commit a crime, that's targeting our opponent, any of our opponent's permanents in play, or their discard pile, we get 2 tapped 2/2 blue and black zombie rogue creature tokens once a turn. Bitter Blossom. That makes fairy rogues. Oh, we have a token section. Okay, I'm like, what? Dreadhorde Invasion, same thing, but it's amassing zombies. Jadar gets us 2/2 zombies with Decayed. At the beginning of your combat step, create a 2/1 red elemental creature token with Trample and Haste. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. And then we can tap, search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Activate only if 5 or more creatures died this turn. That second part, super hard to actually get going. Lord Skitter. Whenever another rat enters the battlefield under your control, exile up to 1 target card from an opponent's graveyard. At the beginning of combat in your turn, you get a 1/1 rat that can't block. Ozox, the Clattering King. Oh, this thing creates a thing that can get it back from the graveyard. Ghoul Color Gisa, we can sacrifice another creature and create a bunch of zombies. And that's the last card, and I already have a thing that I can do different. We can get rid of this, and then put in a card that didn't exist when I first put this deck together. The Bitter Bloom Bearer. Because it's Bitter Blossom, but a creature. So there we go. We updated one of our decks. This one's definitely probably more fun than the other one. Again, I like that I've basically made aristocrats without any of the things that ping our opponents for doing aristocrats and stuff. Sarevok or Viconia, a street urchin. Sorry, mildly stuffy today. Checking something really quick. There we go, just something I wanted to reply to. Street Urchin. Commander creatures you own have 1. Sacrifice another creature or an artifact. This creature deals 1 damage to any target. That's basically a slightly better Goblin Bombardment, I want to say. Because you can choose a creature or an artifact. Anyway, Sarevok Deathbringer. At the beginning of each player's end step, if no permanents left the battlefield this turn, so it said left, so that's dies, exiles, or bounce back to hand. That player loses X life, where X is Sarevok's power. Okay, that's neat. He encourages things to happen. Viconia, Drow Apostate. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 more creature cards in your graveyard, return a creature card at random from your graveyard to your hand. That is Oversold Cemetery as a creature. That's mildly interesting. Ow. That's what they did. Black Market Connections again. Braid's Arisen Nightmare. At the beginning of my end step, I may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If I do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. For each opponent who doesn't, that player loses 2 life, and we draw a card. So, ordering our triggers, we would have Braid's trigger first, and then we sacrifice something, if nothing, so we don't take damage from Sarevok. And Street Urchin, obviously, is our way of, like, fail state, have something to sacrifice for Sarevok to not hit us. Buster Sword, because it's a good card that should go in more decks. In fact, it should have been in every deck I built up to now. But I didn't put it into all those decks. And in fact, hold on, just scratching my back. Now that this card has been brought to my attention, we minus this. And put in a Buster Sword. Oh, and it goes right into the draw section. Look at that. And for a reminder, equipped creature gets +3/+2. Sure. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Then you may cast a spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to that damage without paying its mana cost. Equip 2. It's just a very solid card. Ding. Morbid Opportunist. We've seen this guy before. Phyrexian Arena. The Blood Fist of Killed again. Rakdos, Patron of Chaos, is 6 mana, 6/6 legendary demon. Flying and Trample. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent may sacrifice 2 non-land, non-token permanents. If they don't, you draw 2 cards. Not really a big effect off of 6 mana, if we're being honest. But it is a flying trample 6/6 with just like a fun little bonus on top of it. And considering what set he's from him, at least he's not a detective. And then we go into our land. And then stuff to raise our... Wow, okay. I just saw several of the cards that I'm about to read. So we have the thing that makes Sarevok a 5/5. Or we can make Sarevok a 7/7. Or we can make Sarevok our life total. Or we can do Cauldron Complete, which is +5/+5, first strike, trample, indestructible, haste. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a creature, exile that creature. That is a big ask in this deck. And with a standard issue ramp package up to a point. So we got the Crime Novelist, which whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Crime Novelist and add red. Okay, then we have this guy, beginning of your end step, treasure token for each creature that tied that turn. Facebreaker, the Soul Taker, Waterdeep Opportunist, Pitiless Plunderer, Oh, Sarevok's Tome. That's new and different. When Sarevok's Tome enters the battlefield, you take the initiative. Then you can tap it for colorless, but if you have the initiative, you get 2 colorless instead. And then pay 3 and tap. Exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Activate only if you completed a dungeon. Probably won't ever do that last part. Then Solemn, Goldspan, and Ancient Copper. Oh, and then we have easy to sacrifice stuff again. Oh, but we did not put everything we could have in this deck. We did not put Shieldred. Shieldred is not appearing in this deck. So that's mildly interesting. Then we have our... we do have some interesting things in our removal section. We have the Dreadhorde Butcher, which is a 1/1 for a black and red with haste. Whenever Dreadhorde Butcher deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on Dreadhorde Butcher. When Dreadhorde Butcher dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. And then down here we have, come on, Jury Master of the Review. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Jury Master of the Review. When he dies, he deals damage equal to its power to any target. More Wild Magic, anything else? Nope, nothing else. And then, was that the end of this deck already? No, we have a token section. That must be down here. Bitter Blossom, Dreadhorde, Jadar. What? Okay. Weapons manufacturing. It is not good, but it's funny. Whenever a non-artifact token you control enters, or non-token artifact, create a colorless artifact named Munitions with, when this token leaves the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target. That is funny because you have... Basically, we can't sacrifice it without any of our sacrifice outlets. And then we have this guy who gives us a free 2/1 without costing us any life. And honestly... Okay, we're going to leave in the Aspirational Cauldron complete, but we are going to take out the Sword and Shield. We're going to add in the Bitter Bloom Bearer over here down to tokens. And then, you know what? We're going to take out Cauldron complete. For Shieldred the Whispering One. There we go. I do like Viconia is obviously the weaker commander here, but that's, I think, kind of my idea for these for these alt commander decks. It's like Sarevok, definitely the stronger of the two, although this is still like not like bracket 3 or anything like that. But like if you're gauging the ability of your bracket 2 table, you'd be like, maybe I will do Viconia and like lay off on people and put Sarevok in the 99. And then this is a deck that I recall liking. So let's start with Passionate Archaeologist. Commander creatures you own have, whenever you cast a spell from exile, this creature deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. Cool. Then it's Durnan of the Yawning Portal. Whenever Durnan Whenever Durnan attacks, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may exile a creature card from among them. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may cast it. The spell has Undaunted, which means it costs 1 less to cast for each opponent you have. But I like that part where even if something happens to Durnan, you can still cast that spell. And then alternate background. Commander creatures you own have, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. This creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is that card's mana value. You may play that card this turn. Keeper of Secrets, first strike haste. From the 40k Chaos deck, because it's a demon. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Keeper of Secrets deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Flaming Tyrannosaurus deals 3 damage to any target. Then we put a +1/+1 counter on Flaming Tyrannosaurus. He has Menace. And then, when Flaming Tyrannosaurus dies, it deals damage to its power equal to its power to each opponent. Roaming Throne to get double triggers off of our commander, I presume. Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. If a creature you control attacking will cause a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that triggered ability attack Harmonicon. There we go. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. If it's a permanent spell, the copy gains haste, and at the end of the end steps, sacrifice this permanent. Non-creature spells you cast from exile have Convoke, which means you can tap creatures you control to pay for the generic cost or one of the color pips of the colors of the creature. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may discard a card. If you do, exile the top 2 cards of your library, then choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. I do not like the idea of permanently exiling one of my cards, but that's probably worth it in this deck. But also the non-creature spells you cast from exile having Convoke isn't bad. Whenever Lae'zel, the Blade Reforged, attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from your library and or your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Lae'zel. She has haste. Tribute to the World Tree, just to make our creatures bigger if they're small. But if they're already power 3 or greater, we draw a card. When Geological Appraiser enters the battlefield, if you've cast it, discover 3. So I don't get it wrong. Exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with mana value 3 or less. Cast it without paying its mana cost, or put it into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in random order. So, you know, that casting stuff from exile thing. Visions of Phyrexia. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't play a card from exile this turn, create a tap Power Stone token. The first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. Whenever a modified creature you control attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Spells you control can't be countered. At the beginning of your end step, discover 5. So that's the discover thing, only mana value 5 instead of 3 like the last one had. When this thing enters, we discover 5. Or we can discard it to deal 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Great Hinge, that's some card draw. Apex Devastator cascades 4 times. Oh, I can rotate the card. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the target card of your library. You may play it this turn. Once each turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost of a spell you cast from exile. Sweet. Although warp space is 6, so this is really expensive. Brotherhood Regalia, Prowler's Helm, Sack of Paper. Ansrag the Quake Mole. Whenever Ansrag the Quake Mole becomes blocked, untap to each creature you control. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase. And then we can pay a lot of mana to make you have to block Ansrag. Excuse me. Whenever a equipped creature attacks, if it's the first combat phase, we get an additional one. Whenever you attack, if it's the first... Oh, she's a commander in her own right in the next deck. So this is a preview of her. Whenever you attack, if it's the first combat, you get an additional one. Oh, and all of our attacking creatures get first strike until end of turn. Neat. This is another one for additional combats. Additional combat if this deals combat damage to a player, but it cannot attack a player it's already attacked this turn. Additional combat. Yep, attacking the player with the most life, we get an additional combat. But this one only gets, once again, it's only on the first combat. And then after that is our lands section. Oh, and then we have a hilarious card in our protection section. Norn, Swift Survivalist. I gave him his own entire deck before because I think he's funny. Can't block. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may exile it. You may play that card from exile this turn. That's funny with the rest of this deck. Then we have the Greaves, the Shroud, the Boots, the Coat. And then we have anything interesting in our ramp section? Oh, we have the green sorceries that get lands from our deck. Goblin and Narcomancer, which means spells that we cast that are green, red or green are 1 generic less to cast. Sakura Tribe Elder, it's basically rampant growth on a stick. Facebreaker. Oh, what does Savvy Trader do? When Savvy Trader enters the battlefield, exile target permanent card from your graveyard. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Oh, neat. Spells you cast from anywhere other than your hand, 1 generic list to cast. Neat. Hit the Mother Lode, that's Discover 10, and then we get treasure tokens equal to how much less than 10 the thing we discovered cost. Old Gnawbone, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, we get that many treasure tokens. Mildly interesting that we have that one, but not the Ancient Brass or Copper. Tlenkali Hunter. Exile target creature card from your graveyard until the end of your turn. You may cast that card. Okay, that's cool. And then once turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a creature spell you cast from exile. Okay, that's neat. And then, oh, Beast Within in our removal section. That's hasn't been talked about this episode. Destroy a permanent, they get a 3/3 Beast. Destructive Revelry. Of course, I haven't talked about any of my removal this episode because I just trust people to have seen other episodes or know what cards do. That was probably bad of me. Destructive Revelry. It destroys an artifact or enchantment and deals 2 damage to its controller. Collective Resistance. It starts at 1 and a green to choose one of these, and then we can pay a green for each additional one. So it can at most be 1 generic and 3 green to destroy artifact, enchantment, and give something hexproof and indestructible until end of turn, which is pretty neat. And then Pest Infestation destroys a bunch of artifacts and enchantments, and then we get pests that died to give us 1 life. Now I see these 3 token makers that I might want to change into other things. Oh, whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand. Okay. Okay. I mean, they're still not the best cards in this deck, but I see why they're in here. Whenever you cast from anywhere other than your hand, get a food. I mean, that's an artifact we could sacrifice to something, I suppose. Or just to gain life if we need to. That was the finisher section because there's additional combats. That's evasion. We're going to put that over there. And that over there. There we go. Because the part where they can't be blocked seems more important than the part where they can't be targeted. The only thing that I would try to find room for is the Ancient Copper Dragon. But I don't see anything off the top of my head that I'd remove for it. I mean, I know some people would say the Roaming Throne, but the Roaming Throne is getting us more cards off of our deck. Although we do probably have a non... Because we'd probably say human or warrior. Yeah. So that's that one. I do like that deck. Karlach. We don't need to read Karlach again, because we just did. Hardy Outlander. Commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, another target creature you control gets plus X until the turn where X is this creature's power. Okay, and then yeah, Karlach is the one that gives us an additional combat if she attacks on if she's out and we've done an attack. And then we have these anthems, which both do the exact same thing, huh? Yep. They are the exact same creature, except Enduring Courage comes back when it dies. Whenever another creature you control enters, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn, and haste until end of turn, right? Whenever a commander you control deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. Nice. Dragonborn Champion. Whenever a source you control deals 5 or more damage to a player, draw a card. Well, our commander can do that, theoretically. Though, you know, so many times and we just destroy them because of commander damage. Whenever one or more creatures you control fight or become blocked, we draw a card. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 2 and either red or green. If you do, double target creature's power until end of turn. That creature must be blocked this combat if able. Elder Gargaroth, just a solid green creature. When it attacks or blocks, we either get a 3/3, 3 life, or a card. Galtha Primer Hunger. This is it put itself under evasion. Don't ask me. It's a 12/12 with trample that costs X less, equal to the total power of creatures you control. Finisher looks like more of that extra combat stuff. There's our lands. There's the gets rid of Hexproof and Indestructible for all of our opponent's stuff. A bunch of stuff with Myriad, because may as well. Oh, Polygoyf? Oh, it's just a Goyf with Myriad. Okay. Oh, this does a disenchant when it deals combat damage to a player. And that's just an 8/6. Rhythm of the Wild. Our creature spells can't be countered. And our non-token creatures have Riot, which means they either get haste or a +1/+1 counter. and then everything else is... Oh, Dolmen's Gate. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. Unnatural Growth. Double the power and toughness of our creatures each combat. Oh, this is Inagos, God of Revels with a skin over it. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gets +X/+S until the turn where X is that creature's power. And this thing is not a creature if our devotion to red and green is less than 7. This doubles the power and toughness of each creature we control during the combats. So it's, you know, unnatural growth attached to a creature. Berserk is funny because it target creature gains trample and +X/+O until end of turn, where X is its power. But then at the beginning of the next end step, destroy that creature if it attacked this turn. Search for the Frozen Esper, destroy target artifact or enchantment. They gain 4 life, but that's because, but it only costs 1 green, so that's why you do it. Urabrask, creatures we control have haste. Creatures our components control enter the battlefield tapped. And nothing new in the ramp section. So this is just a combat damage deck. Very simple. I'm just looking at some stuff. Yeah, I went through these decks a lot faster than I thought I would. So I'll be opening more. Skanos, Dragon Cultist. In fact, I can just do this. Skanos, Dragon Cultist. Dragon Cultist. Commander creatures you own have, at the beginning of your end step, if a source you control dealt 5 or more damage this turn, we get a 4/4 dragon with flying. Oh, which is only 1 less than our commander's strength, or 1 more than our commander's strength. Whenever Skanos Dragonheart attacks, it gets +X/+X until in turn. Oh, well, look at that. Where X is the greatest power among other dragons in control and dragon cards in your graveyard. Okay. Well, good. It gets up to the number. And it's... Oh, and it doesn't say to a player. And doesn't even say combat damage. Stormscale Scion. That's the dragon with Storm that gives other dragons +1/+1. So you basically really just want to do a bunch of cheap dragons. Or not cheap dragons, but a couple of cheap spells. Because if you get a second dragon out of this, I think you're probably fine. Tribute to the World Tree again. That's the 5 or more damage. It doesn't have to be combat damage, but it is to a player. We draw a card. Skyline Despot. We become the Monarch, and if we're the Monarch, at the beginning of our upkeep, we get a 5/5 Red Dragon. Great Henge. So just to be more specific, costs X less, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control. We can tap to add double green and get 2 life. And then whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under our control, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and we draw a card. Atarka World Render. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, it gains double strike until end of turn. It also has flying and trample itself. Oh, and then we just hit our land section. The Greaves, the Boots. Thunderbreak Regent. Whenever a dragon you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, Thunderbreak Regent deals 3 damage to that player. Sarkhan the Masterless. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, each dragon you control deals 1 damage to that creature. That's funny. And then it can turn all of our planeswalkers into 4/4 dragons in the end of turn, flying. And then we can also make a 4/4 flying dragon. Whenever Thrakus the Butcher attacks, double the power of each dragon you control. Unnatural Growth, Mox Jasper. That's the Mox that adds any color if you have a dragon. You couldn't see it because I don't have a webcam, but that was me shrugging. Whenever a minion of the Mighty attacks, if you attacked with a creature with total power 6 or greater, you get a dragon from your hand tapped and attacking. Anything else? Dragons cost less. Pay 1 generic, add 2 mana of any combination of colors to cast dragons. And then you can sacrifice it to dig for dragons. Add green. If you use this mana to cast a dragon, we gain 2 life. Add red. If you cast a dragon, it gains haste. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, this gets a counter on it. And you can remove a counter to draw a card. Or you can just tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Dragon spells cost less. Adds 1 mana of any color, but also dragons we control enter with +1/+1 counter. Herald's Horn, so we can say dragons cost less. Add green. If this mana is used spent on a dragon, it enters with a additional +1/+1 counter and hexproof until our next turn. Sarkon Fireblood. Discard a card to draw a card. 2 mana of any combination of colors to cast dragons, and then create a 5/5 flying dragon. Urza's Incubator to make dragons cost less. Whenever Ganax, Astral Hunter, or another dragon enters, we create a treasure. That's the gold span. Our treasures tap for double. Or, yeah, we sacrifice our treasures for double. And then we create a treasure whenever it attacks or is targeted. D20 worth of thing. Oh, now they're both in the same deck because it's where this is a dragon typo. Cavern Horde Dragon. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power or greatest number of artifacts an opponent controls. Okay, that's interesting. Flying Trample Haste, it's a 6/6. Whenever Cavern Horde Dragon deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token for each artifact that player controls. That's pretty sweet. Earthquake is X less, where X is the total mana value of dragons you control. Flying Trample. Sacrifice a land, return it from your graveyard to your hand. Mildly interesting. Oh, Dragon Tempest. Whenever a creature you control with flying enters, it gains haste until end of turn. Whenever a dragon you control enters, it deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of dragons you control. Whenever one or more dragons you control deal combat damage to an opponent, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Destroy an artifact an opponent controls. Deals 4 damage to each other opponent. Not the one you attacked. Exile the top card of your library. Play it this turn. Okay. Scourge of Valkis. Whenever Scourge of Valkis or another dragon enters the battlefield under your control, deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of dragons you control. Whenever spells your opponents that cast that target this creature cost an additional 3 life to cast. That's different from Ward. Ward counters the spell if they don't pay it. This just says, hey, you gotta pay it. And it doesn't counter the spell. Whenever another creature you control enters, this creature does damage equal to that creature's power to any target. Whenever a dragon you control is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target that isn't a dragon. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. That's pretty sick. When this guy attacks, it deals 4 damage to one target, 3 damage to another target, and then 3 damage to a third target. Destroy. When it comes into play, it destroys a non-land permanent. At the beginning of your next pre-combat main phase, so that's your next turn, it does that again. Then the turn after that, you draw 2 cards. And if this is still around or you still have opponents left, this creature deals damage equal to the total mana value of other permanents you control to each opponent. That 4th one probably never happens, but you have a flying 9/9 that destroyed something. Hopefully something good. In fact, I've never seen this thing hit the 3rd chapter. Like, I've seen it hit the first 2 chapters, and again, I usually just play Brawl. And either it gets taken care of, or the game's over. Kicker 3, when it enters, if it was kicked, you get Karlach. Whenever another non-token dragon control enters, you get a 5/5 dragon with flying. And also, fire breathes all dragons you have. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, you get a 6/6 flying dragon. Jeez. And that's the beginning? Yeah. Gruul dragons. Also showing that typal decks can make it onto my show if they had another theme. And that's not the only dragon typal deck either in this set, I don't think. So I'm going to go here. Yep. Because we are only at an hour, so we're going to do more. I don't know why I keep going to that. But I do got to drink some more water. So this is Erinis, Noble Stalker. Okay. Let's see how I did on this one. So it starts with the background, Noble Heritage. Commander creatures you own have, when this creature enters the battlefield and at the beginning of your upkeep, each player may put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature they control. For each opponent who does, you gain protection from that player until your next turn. I look at that and I go, man, the rest of this deck better have a good selection of spot removal to take care of those creatures we're putting +1/+1 counters on. Because we ain't playing red, so I know we don't have goad. And honestly, I'd also want to put in ghostly prison effects to make it more difficult to attack me. Let's see if I was smart enough to do that when I first put this deck together, if I went in a completely different direction. Like, never playing Noble Heritage and just made this based around Erinis and being white-green. Whenever Erinis, Gloom, Stalker attacks, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield, choose a background, and it has Death Touch. I see why I gave that background to this character, and if you don't know why, it's because I don't think this character is very good, and I don't think that background's very good. So this is one of those, I'm putting 2 things I don't care about into the same deck. Now, maybe we put in a lot of lands that we sacrifice into this deck, and we'll see what we did. Exploration Brood Ship. It has Station. To cover what Station does, you can on your turn as a sorcerer, you can tap a creature you control to put counters on this ship equal to the power of that creature. And when it has any of the numbers on this thing's amount of counters, you get the abilities. So at 3, you may play additional land on each of your turns. Okay. And then at 8, it becomes a flying 4/4 with once during each of your turns, you may cast a permanent spell from your graveyard by sacrificing a land in addition to playing its other cost. Okay, that at least goes with our commander if this thing's around, so we can sacrifice a land, cast a permanent from our graveyard, attack with our commander, get that land back. Right? Yep, it goes to the battlefield. Cool. I hope I didn't put a whole lot of landfall stuff in this deck. If I did, you're going to see me change cards. Play 3 additional lands on our turn. Okay. I don't have high hopes for the rest of this deck. Additional land on our turn. Okay. And then our lands are every basic land type in addition to its other types. Land fixing in a 2-color deck, completely unnecessary. This loot. Additional land, but we can also pay 6 to look at the top 6 cards of our library to put a creature with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands we control from among them onto the battlefield. The rest on the bottom in a random order. Ascend. You may pay additional land on each of your turn. Can't attack or block unless you have the City's Blessing, which is what Ascend will do. If you have 10 or more permanents, you get a City's Blessing for the rest of the game. Play additional land. Play the top card of your library you build. Play lands from the top of your library. And this is probably the best version of that card as far as art goes. Augur of Autumn. Look at the top card of your library at any time. Play lands from the top. And then if you have 3 creatures in play with different power, you can also cast creature spells from the top of your deck. Top card of your library revealed. Play lands from the top of your library. Whenever land enters the battlefield under control, you gain 1 life. Okay. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library. Playing from the top of the library is great, because that's like drawing a card. Kind of. Or at least just having an extra card in your hand. You can pay 1 and tap. Tap 2 untap creatures you control. Reveal a card from your hand or the top card of your library. If you reveal a creature card this way, put it in the battlefield. Activate only during your turn. Okay, so if I was looking at stuff I'd remove, probably Azusa, Lost But Seeking so far. I don't think we need to play 2 additional lands on our turn. And then Vizier of the Menagerie. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. I like all these looking at the top card of our library things. Cast creature spells from the top of your library. You may spend mana as though or mana of any type to cast creature spells. Any type. So, and that's not color. So this could cast Eldrazi off the top of our deck if I was the type of person who put Eldrazi in deck. Anything interesting in our land section? Actually, I'll probably have to go through them, because I won't recognize off the top of my head if something is a sacrifice land, and except for like a few of them. Oh, the bad fetch. I'm playing the bad fetches. I don't know how that sounds on the mic, but I'm applauding myself for playing the bad fetches. Because I said this in a conversation on Discord, that when someone was asked if we should ban the fetch lands for some reason or another, and I said no. But if you play those fetch lands, you should play these fetch lands too. So the good fetches are the ones where you pay 1 life, search for like whatever type of land it says, and it comes into play. This one you have to wait a turn, but it doesn't cost a life. It still brings it into play untapped. So while the other ones are better late game, these ones are technically just as good in the early game, because it just means that you got to get it on the beginning of your next turn. Like your game time economy might be slightly different, but unless you have a 1-drop or something, I don't think it really matters that much. Sacrifice to draw a card. Okay. Sacrifice to draw a card. Also pays this pays 1 life for mana of any type that a land you control could produce. But also you can pay an exorbitant amount of money to put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Not as good as Terrain Generator, but it also does 2 other things. The Verge, this is basically, what is it, Myriad something, but you can, where that has the lands that, it's like basics that share a land type. This doesn't have to be basics, and it's a forest and a plains. I always put it in my Selesnya decks. Surveil. Oh, Misveiled Plains to get stuff from our graveyard onto the bottom of our library, should that ever matter. Play 1 life, sacrifice Prismatic Vista, search your library for a basic land, put it into the battlefield, okay. Enters tapped. Cycling, that's funny. So we could cycle it and still get it into play. Snowlands, because we're going to play into the north. Strip Mine. Yep, sacrifice to destroy a land. Don't be mean and do that to, like, a non-utility land. I mean, really. Save this for something that does something. Like a Maze of Ith, or you know, it just has some kind of effect. Draw a card. Draw a card. Legendary creature becomes a god. God becomes indestructible. Wasteland. Destroy non-basic land. I do like this better than the Strip Line because it has the built-in don't be a jerk. The Heath. That's the good one. Oh, Landfall. But this is Landfall, copy a creature that we already have. And you have to pay mana. So that it at least is some little extra steps to keep it from being entirely as barftastic. She's as strong as the lands you control, and then you get 3/3 Badgers. 4/4 Beasts. Oh, there's the Avengers Zendikar. Okay. I guess I really checked out. What even is this secret layer drop? So I wasn't even really trying. I just went Avengers Zendikars are when gone. Heliod, that's destroy X artifacts or creatures, or just gain a bunch of life. This can deal twice X damage to each creature with flying, or you can just grab a bunch of lands from your deck. Settle the Wreckage, exiles all attacking creatures and replace them with basic lands. That is important to know. The Regalia, the Greaves, the Helm, the Paper. Yep. Oh, Arachnogenesis. Okay, I decided to put that in here. Create X 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. Mithril Coat. Okay, Soul Ring, Arcsig. Anything interesting? Whenever Deep Root Wayfinder deals combat damage to a player or battle, Surveil 1. Then you may return a land from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, and to Surveil is to look at the top card of your library and you can either put it back or put it into the graveyard. Crucible Worlds to play lands from our graveyard. Ramonad Excavator to play lands from our graveyard. Conduit of Worlds to play lands from our graveyard, or we can tap. Choose target non-land permanent card in our graveyard. If we have not cast a spell this turn, We may cast that card. If we do, we cannot cast additional spells this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So if there's something really important in our graveyard, we can grab it. You may play additional land on your turns. You may play lands from your graveyard. Landfall, Mila card. Okay. Lands from your graveyard, and you can also unearth it in case you need to. Oh, Ancient Green Warden. Jeez, that is terrible eyes that I have. Although I'd also say that is tiny italicized text. Reach, play lands from your graveyard, and lands entering, double trigger. Okay. Ren and Whelm Rocker. Lands tap for a mana of any color. Up to one target land we control becomes a 3/3 elemental. Okay. And then we can mill 3 cards. May put opponent card from among them into our hand. And then we can get an emblem that says you may play lands and cast permanent spells from your graveyard. Okay. And Unwanted Remake. Big fan of that one. Destroy creature, Manifest Dread. They look at the top 2 cards of their library. One goes face down into play as a 2/2 colorless creature. The other one goes in their discard pile. Resistance again. Faithful Anthem. Emergency Eject. I gotta remember to put into more decks. Destroy target non-land permanent. Controller makes a lander token, which is just Rampant Growth as a token. Generous Gift. Remembers Nibelheim, which is just Stroke of Midnight. Maja, Bredegard Protector. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever land enters the battlefield under control, you get a 1/1 human warrior. Whenever land you control is put into a graveyard, we get a 5/3 elemental. Whenever she enters, we turn target land from our graveyard to the battlefield. Okay. Elvish Reclaimer is bigger as long as we have 3 more lands in our graveyard, but we can also sacrifice a land to tutor a different land into the battlefield. Geez, how much of this deck actually needed to be white? Well, I guess the removal section is white, but most of this deck is green. Yeah, I'm not going to dwell on this deck, but like I probably like Avenger of Zendikar is at least a legitimate win condition, even if it's boring. But I see what I was doing, and it's fine. It's like, yep, I did not do anything interesting. And in fact, there is no reason to play Noble Heritage. It is just there. I gotta grab these. Just gotta grab this information for when I go to upload these. So we can close that now. Scratch my arm. Grab this now that I'm thinking about it. And then I want to check something else over here. Did we have any ores in the first episode? No. Also, wow, I went through way fewer decks in the first one. Maybe I just had more stuff I wanted to go over. Okay, but I did not have any ores. Anyway, Veteran Soldier. Grab this while I'm here. Commander creatures you own have. Whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, each opponent creates a 1/1. Oh, for each opponent. Okay, that is way better than the thing I was saying. For each opponent, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token that's tapped and attacking that player. Okie dokie. Jaheira, Friend of the Forest. Tokens you control, tap to add green. Nice. So if our veteran soldier creatures live, they become mana dorks. Very nice. I'm editing my thing because I think for my ores I'm just going to put the one that I chose as the commander to be the one that I put onto the thumbnail. But we could instead have Cloakwood Hermit. Is that what I kind of did here? We have 2 alt backgrounds, 2 alt commanders. So we could have Hal Sin as the face commander. But I see why I went with Jaheira instead, because she's less expensive and she ramps. So if we wanted to have Ellen Harbury's The Busybody, the Cloakwood Hermit would have to be the main background. So, commander creatures you own have at the beginning of your end step, if a creature card was put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, create 2 squirrels. Tapped squirrels. Commander creatures you own have creature tokens you control get +2/+2. Okay. So you can see how this thing was just like, this is just Selesnya creature tokens. Ellen lets us look at the top X cards of our library, where X is the number of tokens you created this turn. 1 of those into your hand, and the rest at the bottom of your library in random order. Helsin can pay 1 to turn a token you control into a 4/4 bear. Costs 1, and it's not a tap ability, so like, and it says token, not creature token. So it's like food, bear, treasure, bear, junk, bear, vial of blood, bear. Not that we have most of those in this deck, I bet. I think we're just turning small creatures into bigger creatures. Ellen Norn, because +2 to us, -2 to them. Yeah. Skull Clamp, to if our creatures are not big, we can trade them for cards. Draw a card if we created a token. Whenever 1 or more tokens you control enter, draw a card once a turn. Okay. Level 2, create a token that's the target of a token you control. Copy that token you control. And then the last one, which we'll probably never pay for unless things are going really slow. Creature tokens you control get +2/+2. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control with power 2 or less enter, draw a card once a turn. And if it dies, it comes back as an enchantment that is not a creature. Whenever you makes tokens, you get a food on the top of all of that. Sacrifice 3 food to draw a card. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. If it's the second time this ability has happened, draw a card instead. This is the 2 or less, draw a card once a turn. Each end step, if you created a token, draw a card. This is Toski, Bearer of Secrets, but I decided to put the anger-amplifying version on that will annoy a non-zero number of people. Can't be countered. Indestructible. Attacks each combat. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Elder Gargaroth, because if you have nothing else and you need another creature, and it doesn't need to be cheap, Elder Gargaroth is great. Craterhoof, because why not? Oh, I hope Crackerhoof is in here too. Yep, Crackerhoof, very next card. Look at that. Craterhoof and Crackerhoof. This is Trample. This is Flying. I guess on paper both are equally good. Then we look at the protection section, and Arachnogenesis is in there again. Look at the ramp section, and oh, we have something interesting there. We have a couple of interesting things. Omnath, Locus of Mana. We do not lose green mana as steps and phases end. And then this thing is +1/+1 for each unspent green mana we have. Bootlegger Stash, if we have... This is completely ridiculous. Lands we control create treasure. And then those treasures with our primary commander will tap for green without needing to be sacrificed. Fanghorn the Shepherd. Tree folk we control have vigilance for what that's worth. Whenever one or more tree folk you control attack, we get twice that many green. But we also don't lose on green spent mana, in case that's ever important. Whenever Astropeth enters the battlefield or attacks, we get a food. Whenever you sacrifice a clue or food, she explores. And to explore, you reveal the top card of your library because you have to prove what it is. If it is a land, you put it in your hand. If it is not a land, you can either leave it on the top of your deck or put it in your graveyard. Either way, Astropeth gets a +1/+1 counter for non-lands. Hero of Light, which is really Adeline. Power and toughness, no, power but not toughness is equal to the number of creatures you control. Whenever you attack, for each opponent, you get a 1/1 white human creature token that's attacking them. Or a planeswalker they control. Whenever Kadira, Caller of the Small, deals combat damage to a player, for each token we control, we get a rabbit. Power and toughness equals the creatures we control. Whenever we create tokens, we also get a 1/1 white soldier. Any Thopters we happen to have get +1/+1. If one or more artifact tokens, so that is not... I think most of our tokens are not that, but like if we're making those foods or anything like that, we also get a 1/1 Thopter. Ugh. Whenever you attack, we get a food for each player being attacked. And then we can tap X untapped foods to create human tokens. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, we get a 1/2 spider. Or instant or sorcery, specifically. Doubles our token production. During your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. And then whenever she attacks, we get X 1/1 colorless soldiers, where X is the number of soldiers we control. This gives us angels instead of any other type of creature token. This doubles our tokens, makes a token, so it makes 2. +1/+1 counter on all of our creatures, and they gain flying until our next turn. Or destroy a creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. Oh, this is another token doubler that I often forget exists. With flying and lifelink on top of that. At the beginning of each upkeep, we get a Saproling. And then if we have the Setting's Blessing, they get +2/+2. This triples our creature token generation. This gets D20 worth of fairy dragon creatures when it deals combat damage to something. Whenever we attack, so this thing doesn't have to attack, create a tapped attacking XX, which is the greatest power, or X11s, which is the number of other attacking creatures. So that, yeah, this is just some Selesnya go wide bull donkey. I see I don't have Anointed Procession, because I'm like, oh, with all these other doublers, we don't need the do nothing else enchantment. All my other doublers at least do something else, like be a creature or a planeswalker. Okay, yep, no, I like where I went with that for, you know, what it was doing. So now we have, Lae'zel, Master Chef. Oh, and for once the creature is listed first. Because it goes in... it goes in... Whoops. It goes in... mana value order. If you would put one or more counters on a creature or planeswalker you control... Oh, it even says planeswalker. I don't think I take advantage of that. Put that many +1 of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. Or, oh, one or more counters on a creature, planeswalker control, or on yourself. Okay. So we're not taking advantage of all of that. Commander creatures you own have this creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, and other creatures you control enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on them. So if we put this out first, she enters with 2 because we put 2. We put 1 and then another 1. So this is also another standard issue Selesnya deck, but this is standard issue +1/+1 counters. Benevolent Hydra gives additional +1/+1 counters to other things. This is in the addition in the +1 category, and it's an X, so it enters with X +1/+1 counters. But it does not benefit from its own additionals. This part says other. But we can tap, remove a +1/+1 counter from this creature to put 1 on another one. So we remove 1 from this to put 2 on something else. Conclave Mentor, +1, and then life equal to its power when it dies. Doubles our counters, halves our opponent's counters. Ozolith to hold on to counters when things die. Reluctant Role Model. He also saves counters. At the beginning of your second main phase, if it's tapped, you put a flying, lifelink, or +1/+1 counter on it. When Reluctant Role Model or another creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, put those counters on up to 1 target creature. Macias is an X creature that enters with that many +1/+1 counters. You can also tap to put more counters on him, or remove a counter from him to put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. Arwen has other creatures enter the battlefield with additional +1/+1 counters equal to her toughness. Another creature enters, it gets a +1/+1 counter. The other creature gets the +1/+1 counter for that. Each other vehicle and creature you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it if its mana value is 4 or less. Otherwise, if its mana value is 5 or greater, it gets 2. No, 3 additional. Each other non-token creature you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. What's nice about this kind of thing, like the token doublers, like doesn't feel like all that great. Like if it doesn't do anything else. But I feel like putting additional +1/+1 counters is always good because you're casting creatures. And then we can pay 1 and tap, proliferate X times, where X is the number of non-token creatures you control that enter this turn. So you'll probably be proliferating at least once. Search your library for a mounted vehicle, which probably will never happen. And then that's that +1/+1 counter. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is this creature's power. This creature gets the +1/+1 counter, so that's, a problem. Other creatures you control enter with additional +1/+1 counter. Whenever this guy attacks, for each creature you control with power greater than its base power, put a number of +1/+1 counters on that equal to the difference. That's another problem. Enters to put a +1/+1 counter on each up to 2 target creatures. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it attacks, double the number of counters on it. This thing, we can remove a +1/+1 counter from itself to draw a card. And then if we target it with a spell, we can go put a +1/+1 counter on it. That's never happening. Enters with the number of +1/+1 counters equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. So it's minimum. So it's always a 2/3, even if X is 0. So that's nice. Whenever you attack, you may remove a +1/+1 counter from each up to 2 creatures you control. If you do, draw a card and create a robot, a 2/2 robot. I like how this thing doesn't have to attack, and you also don't have to remove counters from this. I also like removing counters to draw cards. Your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. If one or more creatures you control, each with power greater than its base power, deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. +1/+1 counters or drawing a card. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Sure, why not? We probably have a lot of creatures in this deck. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another creature card you control or one in graveyard, draw a card. This is probably my most responsible draw of the episode. Some people might say Guardian Project isn't a great card because it costs 4 mana, but we're in green. Toski again, Great Henge again. Now we're at our land section. So we will click on the last one. And then, we're in our removal section. Pest Infestation, Heliod's Intervention, Oh, this is our Mass Disruption. Destroy all creatures with no counters on them. Get wrecked. Then I believe we are in the Outlast section. Whoops, nope. Dingen Verdict. Oh, Modifies Modified. That's the section. Put a +1/+1 counter on target soldier creature, which there's probably soldiers in here. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it can block an additional creature, so that's cool. Each creature controlled with a +1/+1 counter has a trample. Each creature controlled with a counter has tap to add green. Each creature controlled with a +1/+1 counter can't be blocked by more than one creature. So anti-menace. Or something. First strike. Oh, now we're in the Outlast section. Outlast is you tap it, pay the Outlast cost, and you put a +1/+1 counter on. But since it's a sorcery, Outlast is garbage as a mechanic. But several of the things with Outlast usually also say something like each creature you control with a +1 counter on it has, in this case, First Strike. In this case, Flying. In this case, Lifelink. But it also just says Modified. So they can be equipped or enchanted as well. Or have a different type of counter. Trample again. Lifelink again. Reach. So they can block stuff with flying. And now we look at our ramp section. Oh, and here we go. We have some new stuff over here. Additional +1/+1 counters again. And also adds mana equal to its power. Modified creatures dealing combat damage to a player lets us search our library for basic land and put it into the battlefield tapped. This spell costs 1 less for each creature controlled with a +1/+1 counter on it. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less for each creature with a +1/+1 counter on it that you control. So there you go. And then our removal section. Oh, Lion Sash. It removes stuff from the graveyard to put +1/+1 counters on itself. And it's an equipment creature. So you can reconfigure. That's just the special equipment version for creatures that you pay to take off or put on. It gets +1/+1 for each counter on them. So yeah, standard issue. I have no complaints. This one I'm probably happy with. So far, I think my favorite deck is still Mono Black Party. Like, you can disagree with me of whether or not that's the best deck I've thrown. Oh, I forgot to do that. You can disagree with me if you think that's the best deck I put together so far, but I just think it's great that it was possible. I gotta hit this really quick because I want to update this. Nope, I gotta go back over here. It was you. I forgot to grab Master Chef. So I assume that's Rasad in Bashir. Thankfully, games like Ys or words like Yggdrasil have helped me figure out how you pronounce Y when it's not at the end of a word. Excuse me, sorry. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its butt rather than its fists. Whenever Rasadin Bashir attacks, if you have the initiative, and he does not give you the initiative, for the record, darn it, double the toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. So there's going to be cards in here that hopefully give us the initiative, otherwise we're leaving money on the table. Commander creatures you own have base power and toughness 10/10 and are giants in addition to their other types. I used to have more decks that put Raised by Giants in it, but I decided to... Oh, I used to have 3, but now I'm down to 2. And I see what I did. Where is this? Candlekeep. Because I know I reused a I need because of how many backgrounds versus how many creatures there were. I was at first reusing Raised by Giants 3 times or twice because the original isn't the reuse, and one of them was who the heck was it? It was someone from here. It wasn't Skanos. It might have been, no, it could have been Sarevok. But I know I was using it 3 times. But I traded it down to 2 times. But I don't know. I don't remember where else I reused it. Anyway, Armored Armadillo, it's an 04 that we can pay for to make it its power bigger if we felt like it. Anyway, 04 for 1, 04 for 1, 06 for 2, 07 for 4, or 17 for 4, 1/7 for 4. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if you control the creature with the greatest toughness or tied for the greatest toughness. That's all that he's there for. Creatures controlled with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. If an ability of a creature controlled with power 2 or less triggers, this ability triggers additional time. I don't know how much that second one goes, but that's just my hilarious way of getting past big creatures, because it's funny. Flanking. Whenever a creature without flanking blocks this creature, the blocking creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Creatures your opponents control without flying or reach cannot block creatures with power 2 or less, and that's not just ours, that's everybody's. So that's funny. So all of our creatures have non-flying flying. This is an 8 toughness with double strike, flying, vigilance, trample, and indestructible. Zetalpa. It's just a funny card. And then we're at our lands, right? Yep. Shadow Spear, because why not? Tree of Redemption, it's an 013 that we can make a lot bigger, even though it has Defender and can't attack. But it's an 013, you know, it's a 13 toughness blocker for 4. That's fine. Oh, it has the nerve to put itself in the life gain category. I guess if I get low, I can... Whatever. You know what? I'm not even going to think about it. Pest Infestation, Heliod's, Nylea's, Settle, right? Auto kill anything with Death Touch. That's blocked or blocked by it. That's important. Arachnogenesis again. They are technically 2/2s in this deck. As long as it's your turn, creatures you control have hexproof. Each creature you control with toughness greater than its power deals assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So, kind of a backup for our commander. 10 toughness for 4 mana. 10 toughness for 5 mana. That, if we do the disguise thing, which means we can pay 3 generic, play it face down as a 2/2 with ward 2. Then if we pay 2 and a white, we can turn it face up to give creatures we control hexproof until end of turn and untap them. That might be important. Ancient Adamantoise, 20 toughness for 8 mana, but also vigilance, ward 3, and damage isn't removed from this creature during the cleanup step. And all damage that will be dealt to you and other permanents you control is dealt to this creature instead. When this creature dies, exile it, and we get 10 tap treasure tokens. But it's a 20 toughness vigilance. Belt of Giant Strength to give equipped creature-based toughness 10/10. That's kind of like a backup for our background. But also we can make something else 10 toughness. Unnatural Growth to double power and toughness. This is E Honda just in universe. As long as it's your turn, each creature assigns combat damage. Wow. Okay, I just realized that, and I probably had this realization before and forgot. Now I'm re-realizing it. Each creature, not just ours, assigns combat damage equal to their butt. He enforces butt fighting. And then whenever he attacks, up to 100 target creatures gets plus O+X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in our hand. Each creature controls assigns combat damage equals toughness rather than its power. And then we go through our ramp. And we see nothing new or... Oh, no, we see one thing. Oh, that's a 4/10 with vigilance. That'll add 2 green mana when we attack. And also means we don't lose green mana during steps and phases. Nature's Claim. May block as those that had flying, and it's 7 toughness for 5 mana. And it deals, and it has the thing where it can deal X damage to each creature with flying. That's not a tap ability. And then we get little spiders when our opponents cast instants and sorceries. Yeah. So that was Selesnya of Butts. I like that one. We still have another 10 minutes. So I will open... we can open the one... boy, I gotta make these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 decks last next week. So we can go through the one Orzhov deck. Now you might be like, wow, Lulu or Shadowheart? Those are two characters with completely different personalities. So first, it's Agent of the Iron Throne. Lulu, never knew you had it in you. When commander creatures you own have, whenever an artifact or creature you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. Flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on each tapped creature you control, then untap them. Okay. So we kind of want our stuff to go away. Or kind of just scratching at something. Far Traveler. Commander creatures you own have at the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target tap creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its own thing. So, of course, we'd order Far Traveler first to get a +1/+1 counter. Although I see I didn't make a separate thing because it's all commander because it's reversed colors. So that was Shadowheart's background, and Shadowheart has 1 out of black, tap, sacrifice another creature, draw X cards where X is that creature's power. So she's a card draw commander. Esper Sentinel, the first time an opponent casts a non-creature spell on each turn, we draw a card unless they pay X, where X is equal to Esper Sentinel's power, which is base 1. Whenever an opponent searches their library, you gain a life and draw a card. That includes with fetch lands, for what it's worth. I think that's just filler, honestly. Braids again, we talked about her earlier. Commissar Severina Rain. Another 40k card that made it into a deck. Which deck is she in? Well, I mean, it's either the Space Marines or the Chaos deck, I guess. Well, it has to be the Space Marines because the Chaos deck I think is Grixis, and the other 2 decks are Necron and Tyranids, and Tyranids doesn't have black in it, I don't think. Whenever she attacks, each opponent uses X life, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. Okay, so this is Orzhov aggro. But she also has turn other creatures into a clue with upside. Pay 2, sacrifice another creature. You gain 2 life and draw a card. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, draw a card. Morbid Opportunist again, once a turn. If an opponent would draw 2 or more cards, instead you and that player each draw a card. Pay 1, sacrifice another creature, gain life equal to its toughness, draw a card. This is Mangar the Diplomat with a fancy skin. Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if two or more are attacking us, or a planeswalker we control, we draw a card. When they cast their second spell, we draw a card. This is like Mangara, but kind of better. If an opponent would begin an extra turn, no. Whenever they attack us, but doesn't count our planeswalkers. Whenever they attack us with two or more creatures, draws their second card, or cast their second spell, draw a card. That's per turn. Sacrifice another creature, draw a card, create a food. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact or enchantment control, except it's legendary, activate as a sorcery. That is a land with station, for the record, and it's 12 to do that. Looking over the lands in case... Oh. Draw a card, activate only if you attack with two or more creatures this turn. Pay 2 life, sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to its power, only as a sorcery. That's a station land again. Oh, we definitely can skip past all those basics. Heliod's Intervention, Settle the Wreckage. Grand Abolisher. During your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate the abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, you lose a life and create a treasure. The Iron Crag can turn into a piece of equipment. We usually do not do that. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create 2 treasure tokens, and then you can sacrifice X treasures to give something -X until end of turn. Equal to the number of treasures you sacrifice, for the record. Pitiless Plunderer. Whenever a creature we control dies, we get a treasure. Good old Sad Robot. Oh, and then we have our suite of easily sacrificed creatures, because we can make them come back. Oh, Luminous Broodmoth. Whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, return it to its owner's hand at the end of the beginning of the next end step. If a creature an opponent control would die, exile it instead. So blah 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 blah. Oh. Fracture gets artifacts, enchantments, or planeswalkers, so it's slightly better than a disenchant, just with a very restrictive mana cost of a white and a black. Anguish Unmaking, non-land permanent, lose 3 life. Utter End, costs 1 more, but you don't lose the 3 life. There's the Soul Trader again, pay a life. Sacrifice a creature, create a treasure. Sacrifice another creature, this thing gets indestructible until end of turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, this gets a +1/+1 counter, for the record. Oh, Adipose Offspring. Whenever this enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 white alien creature token. If its emerge cost was paid, you get X of those tokens, where X is the sacrificed creature's toughness. Whenever another creature dies, this gets a +1/+1 counter. When this dies, we get X/1/1 vampires, where X is her power. Whenever a player sacrifices a non-token creature, we get an insect with flying. Whenever an insect, leech, slug, or worm you control attacks, defending player loses life and we gain a life. If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile and we get a zombie. And then we can sacrifice a vampire or zombie to put 2/+1 counters on this guy. This is the Ghoul Caller that we can trade creatures for some number of zombies equal to its power. And yeah, that's back to the Ancient Throne. So yeah, this is black-white aristocrats again. Though, once again, I'm glad that even back whenever I was doing these, I was like, let's not put in the Blood Artists for what it's worth and try to win in other ways, even though there's no real win condition otherwise in this deck. Other than, I guess, outlast my opponents or something. I don't know. Whatever. Oh, my deck is down to 99 cards. Did something fall out of the deck? At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, we get a soldier. Let's put that back in. Like, I know we could put in something good, like since our primary guy is flying, we could put in a Buster Sword, but we're not going to worry about it. That's the deck as it is. And we hit 2 hours, so I'm happy with that. So next week, and that is not the right window, we will do these last 8 decks, and then we'll have another week of I don't know what I'm going to do until we get there. So see you then.